I still remember the exact moment my world collapsed. It was a Tuesday, gray sky, slight drizzle, the kind of weather that makes you feel like something bad is about to happen. Maybe I should have seen the signs. Maybe I should have known that trusting him, of all people, was my biggest mistake. But back then, I was just a guy with a dream, too naive to see the knife heading straight for my back. His name was Victor. My best friend. Or at least, I thought he was. We met in college, two broke IT students with nothing but ambition and caffeine addictions. We clicked instantly, bouncing ideas off each other, pulling all-nighters fueled by cheap energy drinks, dreaming about the day we'd change the world with our code. And I had done it. I created something groundbreaking. A deep learning framework that could optimize itself, an AI that rewrote its own code, learning from past errors better than anything on the market. It was the kind of tech that could shake up the entire industry, the kind of breakthrough that could turn a nobody like me into the next big name in Silicon Valley. But I was just a student. No connections, no funding, no clue how to present it to the world. That's when Victor stepped in. "Let me handle this," he said, eyes gleaming with excitement. "You're the genius, but I know how to sell it. We do this together, just like we always planned." I didn't even hesitate. Of course, I trusted him. He had been my closest friend for years. I handed him everything, the code, the research, the documentation. I gave him full access to our shared repo, thinking this was the start of something huge. But the next time I heard about my work, it wasn't under my name. It was under his. Victor had gone behind my back, pitched my AI to investors, and walked away with everything. He rebranded it, took sole credit, and within months, he was being hailed as the next tech prodigy. Interviews, funding, headlines calling him the genius behind the breakthrough. And me? I was erased. At first, I tried to fight. I reached out to the investors, to the university, even considered going public with my claims. But who would believe some broke, no-name student over the rising star of the AI world? Victor had done his homework. He changed just enough of the code to make it seem different. He had the connections, the charisma, the business acumen. I had nothing. It wasn't just the betrayal that crushed me, it was the sheer finality of it. One day, I was on the verge of something great. The next, I was nothing more than a footnote in someone else's success story. I tried to move on, but the weight of it followed me everywhere. I dropped out of college. Couldn't afford to stay. Couldn't stand walking past the lecture halls where we once brainstormed, couldn't stand hearing his name whispered in admiration. I took odd jobs debugging outdated corporate software, fixing bugs in forgotten projects. Anything to keep my head above water. Meanwhile, Victor was rising. His company, NeuroForge, became one of the fastest growing AI startups in the world. His face was everywhere: tech conferences, magazine covers, even TED Talks where he spoke about the long nights of hard work that led to his breakthrough. I watched from the sidelines, unseen. Forgotten. Until one day, I decided I wouldn't be forgotten anymore. That was the day everything changed. For a long time, I thought that was it. That my story ended the moment Victor stole my work and left me with nothing. I spent months spiraling, broke, bitter, and exhausted. At first, I tried to drown myself in freelance gigs, scraping together money for rent by debugging ancient systems for companies that barely knew what they were doing. But nothing I touched felt like it mattered. I had built something revolutionary once, and now I was just another nameless code monkey fixing other people's mistakes. The worst part? I almost gave up. There were nights when I convinced myself that maybe I wasn't as smart as I thought. That maybe Victor deserved the success because he had the drive to take it. I told myself I'd never get another shot at something big. And for a while, I believed it. Until one night, when everything changed. I was working late, squinting at a broken API integration that some clueless startup had hacked together. My tiny apartment was a mess: empty energy drink cans stacked against my monitor, my mattress pushed into the corner of the room because I hadn't bothered getting an actual bed. I barely recognized myself anymore. And then I saw it. A notification popped up on my screen, an article about Neuralforge's latest update. Victor's company. The company that should have been mine. I almost ignored it, but something about the headline caught my attention. Users report AI model errors in Neuralforge's newest release. I clicked the link, my heart pounding. The article detailed how Neuralforge's latest version was producing unexpected failures, hallucinations, and even self-deleting code. Experts were baffled. Investors were nervous. The golden company was starting to show cracks. And I knew exactly why. Victor had stolen my work, but he had only taken what I had built at that moment. What he didn't know was that I had already started working on the next step. The version I had handed over wasn't meant to be the final build, it was just the beginning of something much bigger. Something only I understood. And suddenly, I saw my way out. I wasn't just some forgotten developer. I was the only person in the world who truly understood the foundation of Neuralforge's AI. And if I had built it once, I could do it again. But this time, I'd do it right. The comeback begins. For the next 2 years, I disappeared. I cut myself off from distractions. I stopped looking at tech news, stopped following Victor's success, stopped wasting my energy on resentment. Instead, I threw myself into my own project. If I had built something great once, I could build something better. I took contract work just to keep the lights on, but every spare moment, every ounce of energy, went into the new system I was developing. I wasn't just fixing Neuralforge's flaws, I was pushing the boundaries of AI far beyond what I had done before. I built a model that didn't just learn, it adapted. A system that evolved on its own, fixing its weaknesses before they became problems. An AI that could rewrite entire structures on the fly, making it almost impossible to break. And this time, I wasn't going to be naive. I learned from my past mistakes. I locked my work behind encryption so tight that even I had trouble accessing it sometimes. I spread my research across multiple backups, offline and offsite. I refused to let anyone get close enough to steal from me again. And when the time was right, I launched it. I called it Echelon. Unlike Neuralforge, Echelon wasn't just another AI framework, it was a fully autonomous self-improving system. The kind of technology that could change everything, from cybersecurity to medical research. I released a limited beta to a select group of developers and researchers, and the response was immediate. Within months, everyone was talking about Echelon. Investors flooded my inbox. Companies reached out, desperate to get in on the next big thing. Suddenly, the world was paying attention not to Victor, but to me. And that's when fate decided to deal its final card. Because just as Echelon was rising, Neuralforge was falling. The AI errors that had started as minor issues turned into catastrophic failures. Investors started pulling out. Lawsuits piled up. The cracks in the company's foundation widened until the whole thing was on the verge of collapse. And then, one day, I got an email. From Victor. Subject: we need to talk. I stared at the screen, barely able to believe it. After all these years, after all the betrayal, he was coming to me. I clicked the message open. Hey, it's been a while. I know things ended badly between us, but I really need your help. I think you're the only one who can fix this. For the first time in years, I smiled. I had spent so long trying to survive, to prove myself, to rise from the ashes Victor left me in. And now, the man who stole everything from me was begging for my help. The only question was, what was I going to do about it? I spent a long time just staring at that email. It was surreal, seeing Victor's name pop up in my inbox after all these years. The last time we spoke, he had stolen my work, sold it as his own, and left me to rot. And now he was coming to me like none of that had ever happened, like we were still friends, like I owed him something. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years, I looked him up. Neuralforge was in free fall. Their latest AI update had been a disaster, crashing critical systems, corrupting data, and even locking some companies out of their own networks. Investors were backing out, users were furious, and the media was eating it up. Tech analysts were already calling it one of the most spectacular collapses in AI history. And Victor? The golden boy of Silicon Valley was drowning. His social media had gone silent, and every interview request was met with a firm no comment. Rumors were swirling that he had lost control of his own company, that Neuralforge's board was looking for a way to push him out. For the first time in years, he was the one with nothing. I let him sweat for a few days before responding. Let's talk. My office. Tomorrow. I didn't actually have an office. I worked out of a high-rise co-working space in the city. But it was impressive enough, and I wanted Victor to see just how much things had changed. When he arrived the next afternoon, I barely recognized him. The confident, smooth-talking guy I once knew was gone. Instead, Victor looked exhausted, his eyes sunken, his suit slightly wrinkled like he hadn't slept in days. But the moment he saw me, he forced a smile, like we were still old friends. "Damn," he said, looking around. "Nice place." I didn't return the smile. "Sit." He hesitated, then dropped into the chair across from me. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. He was waiting for me to break the silence, but I refused. I wanted him to feel it, to feel the weight of what he had done, to feel the shift in power between us. Finally, he sighed and leaned forward. "Listen. I know we have history," he said, choosing his words carefully. "And I know you probably don't want to hear from me. But I wouldn't be here if I wasn't desperate." I folded my arms. "I know." He exhaled sharply, like he was hoping I'd make this easy for him. "Neuralforge is collapsing. The AI is breaking down, and no one on my team can figure out why. Every patch we push just makes it worse. I don't know what to do." I said nothing. Victor ran a hand through his hair, clearly frustrated. "Look, I know we didn't part on the best terms." I let out a short laugh, and he stopped mid-sentence. "Didn't part on the best terms? That's how you're gonna phrase it?" I leaned forward. "You stole from me, Victor. You took my work, erased my name, and built an empire on something that wasn't yours. And now that it's all falling apart, you want me to fix it?" Victor had the decency to look ashamed. He dropped his gaze, rubbing his hands together. "I was an idiot," he admitted. "I messed up. I'm not here to make excuses. I need your help." For a brief moment, I considered it. Not because I wanted to help him, but because I knew I could fix the AI in a matter of weeks, maybe even days. It would have been easy. But then I thought about all the nights I spent barely scraping by while he stood on stage, taking credit for my genius. I thought about the years I wasted feeling like I wasn't good enough, all because he decided I didn't deserve success. I wasn't going to let him take from me again. So I leaned back in my chair and said, "No." Victor blinked, like he hadn't even considered that possibility. What? "I'm not going to help you." He stared at me, mouth slightly open. "But, you can fix it, right?" I smirked. "Of course I can. But I won't." I watched as the realization hit him. His face went pale, his fingers curling into fists. "If Neuralforge collapses, I lose everything." I tilted my head. "You mean you lose everything you stole?" Victor swallowed hard, desperation creeping into his voice. "Come on, man. You owe me." I slammed my hands on the table so hard he flinched. "I owe you?" I snapped. "You took everything from me. My work. My future. My reputation. And now you have the audacity to sit in front of me and act like I owe you something?" Victor was silent. I stood up, walking over to the window, staring down at the city. "Here's what's going to happen," I said. "Neuralforge is going to crash and burn. The investors will pull out, the lawsuits will pile up, and you'll be left with nothing. Just like I was." Victor clenched his jaw. "You don't have to do this." I turned to face him, my expression cold. "No, I don't. But I want to. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. I could have ended it right there. Could have let him walk out, knowing his fate was sealed. But that would have been too easy. Instead, I pulled out my phone, tapped a few times, and slid it across the table toward him. Victor frowned. "What's this?" "A live feed of NeuroForge's stock price." "Watch it. It's dropping by the hour." He hesitated, then picked up the phone. His face turned even paler as he scrolled. NeuroForge was bleeding money fast. "I have one final gift for you, Victor," I said, my voice calm. "By this time next week, your company will be worthless. Your investors will abandon you. And the world will see you for what you really are, a fraud." Victor swallowed hard, his hands trembling as he set the phone down. "So that's it," he whispered. "You're just going to destroy me?" I shrugged. "You destroyed me first." He looked like he wanted to argue, to fight back, but he had nothing left. No leverage. No power. For the first time in years, I had one. And the best part? I wasn't done yet. Victor left my office a broken man. He didn't argue. Didn't beg. He just walked out, his head low, his steps slow, like he knew his fate was already sealed. But I wasn't done with him yet. See, letting NeuroForge crash and burn on its own wasn't enough. I wanted everyone to know the truth. I wanted the world to see Victor for the fraud he was. I wanted justice. And I had the perfect way to deliver it. Step 1: Exposing the lie. For years, Victor had built his reputation on my work. His entire empire was based on a lie on my AI, my research, my breakthroughs. The problem was, I had no proof. The original code I wrote was long gone, buried under NeuroForge's revisions. Or so Victor thought. What he didn't know was that I had kept everything. Before I ever handed over my work, I had backed up the original source code to a private, encrypted repository. Every version. Every commit. Every late-night tweak and adjustment. A complete, time-stamped record proving beyond any doubt that I was the true creator of the AI that made him famous. And now, it was time to make it public. I compiled everything, every document, every snippet of code, every piece of undeniable evidence, and put it into a detailed public report. I called it "The Truth About NeuroForge, a Stolen Dream." I didn't just upload it to some obscure forum. No, I made sure the world saw it. I sent it to every major tech journalist. I leaked it to industry insiders, developers, AI researchers, anyone who had ever questioned how Victor's so-called genius came out of nowhere. And then, I posted it on my own platform. The reaction was instant. The tech world exploded. Developers on Reddit and Twitter, X, tore through the evidence like vultures. Engineers dissected the code, confirming that my earliest builds were the foundation of NeuroForge's AI. Journalists picked up the story, running headlines like, "The Fall of Victor Lang, NeuroForge's Darkest Secret Exposed." Was the world's most promising AI built on stolen code? Meet the real genius behind NeuroForge. NeuroForge stock, which was already plummeting, collapsed overnight. Investors bailed faster than rats on a sinking ship. And Victor? He went completely silent. Step 2: Taking everything back. Destroying Victor's reputation was satisfying, but I wasn't just here for revenge, I was here to reclaim what was mine. NeuroForge was in free fall. Their AI was failing, their CEO was exposed as a fraud, and their legal team was scrambling to do damage control. Lawsuits were already being filed by investors and clients who had lost millions. And then, at the perfect moment, I made my move. Through a few strategic investors, people who believed in me, I made a bold offer. A takeover bid. NeuroForge was desperate. Their board was bleeding money, and they needed a way out. My offer? Pennies on the dollar. They took it. In one swift move, I became the owner of the very company Victor built on my stolen work. And my first order of business? Erasing his name from it forever. I rebranded the company. scrapped the failing AI. Integrated echeloned my new, superior AI into its infrastructure. Overnight, Neural Forge ceased to exist. In its place stood Echelon Labs. And at the helm? Me. Step 3, the final blow. After everything was set in motion, after Neural Forge was gutted and reborn under my leadership, I got a message from Victor. Not an email. Not a phone call. A handwritten letter. I almost laughed at the irony. The guy who had spent his career talking about cutting-edge technology was now resorting to paper. The letter was short. Messy handwriting, smudged in places like his hand had been shaking while writing it. I get it now. I deserve this. All of it. I need to know. Was there ever a chance you would have forgiven me? I stared at the letter for a long time. And then I did what Victor had done to me all those years ago. I ignored it. I didn't respond. Didn't acknowledge it. Didn't give him the closure he was looking for. Because the truth was, I didn't know him a damn thing. Final step, moving forward. With Victor gone and Echelon Labs thriving, I had everything I had ever wanted. Success. Recognition. Justice. But unlike Victor, I didn't waste it. I built something real, something ethical. I hired developers who actually deserved to be there. I mentored young coders, making sure no one else would ever go through what I did. And as for Victor? No one knows where he is now. Some say he left the country. Others say he's trying to start over under a new name. A few even claim they've seen him applying for entry-level programming jobs. But I don't care. Because for the first time in years, I won. And I did it the right way.